Generations have received news of the most important events from the media. It is reporters who have given us our first draft of history.
This just in, you are looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers.
For many, trust in the media was at an all-time high from the era of World War II, with coverage provided by CBS's Edward R. Murrow, who was also there for the early days of television.
We're impressed with the importance of this medium. We shall hope to learn to use it and not to abuse it.
That trust continued with news anchors such as Walter Cronkite, who was considered by many the most trusted man in America. Cronkite anchored the CBS Evening News from 1962 to 1981 and led us through the civil rights movement, assassinations, Watergate, space travel, and the war in Vietnam.
The enemy struck across the length and breadth of South Vietnam.
However, a recent Gallup poll shows Americans' belief that television, newspapers, radio, and new media report the news fully, accurately, and fairly is now at an all-time low of 40%.
Foreign automakers suffered steep double-digit losses. Overseas, the city of Rome narrowly escaped disaster. How soon will American troops be out of Iraq?
The Gallup survey shows up until 2003, about half of Americans polled trusted what the media was telling them. That trust has slowly eroded since. So what has changed since the eras of Cronkite and Murrow? According to veteran anchor for WSMV television in Nashville, Demetria Kaladimos, so many outlets today provide news, but she says some lack credibility.
The more opinions that are out there, the less trust there is in just a few of those. We've got to be careful and make sure that we're sticking with ones that are giving us accurate information.
And that's the way it is.
For many, there remains nostalgia for the Cronkite era of media coverage. The Poynter Institute for Media Studies Vice President of Academic Programs, Kelly McBride, says what has changed today is we have so many voices. She says we trusted Cronkite because we did not have many other options.
He was a white guy on television telling us that we should believe him, and we didn't have any alternatives. I suspect that if you were to interview people back in the day, there were a lot of people who didn't trust Cronkite, but they didn't have anything else available to them.
With so many options today, Lipscomb University Associate Professor of Journalism Dr. Jimmy McCollum says viewers, readers, and listeners tune into the sources in which they believe.
I think it's a vicious cycle. Those journalists, those media representatives will tend to spout out the things that they want to hear. I thought it was interesting that somebody has said that even when journalists put out the truth these days, sometimes it's not being believed. So I think that's a troubling sign that journalists have these days.
Here are the headlines for this Sunday morning, the 16th.
Trust is a relationship. In this case, between the media and its audience, according to the news director for WREG-TV in Memphis, Bruce Moore.
I'm troubled when anybody says that they don't trust us. All I can do is stand on our newsroom, on our organization, and work hard to be accurate and fair every single day. And if we make a mistake, to admit it.
The Poynter Institute's Kelly McBride adds, in many cases of news coverage, in her words, the audience has been tricked so many times they know information is fallible.
I don't think people are ever going to trust the media again. I think that those days are gone. I think that they're going to learn to trust certain brands or certain sources because those sources are generally reliable, and that's what we're going to have to strive for. And so it's going to be more about that relationship between the consumer and the information provider, not so much the media in general.
Memphis television news director Bruce Moore has difficulty diagnosing the problem of declining trust in the media. When Moore looks around the country at those delivering the news, he sees strong reporting and ethics, but he sees a few cases where some don't make the right decisions.
However, I think when you look at the landscape of what is reported and what is written every day, I think it's strong. And I think the American public is a well-informed public if they choose to be well-informed.
Another difference in today's media coverage involves the increase of citizen journalism. Moore's Nashville television counterpart, anchor Demetria Kaladimos, offers a comparison of professional versus citizen journalists. She says citizens are great observers, have great ideas, and she welcomes citizen journalists, but with caution.
But I do think that journalism needs to be a profession and a craft. And even the citizen with a microphone or with a camera has some responsibility to the truth. And I would hope that they take that part of their title, if it's citizen journalist, they take the journalist part seriously and put out information that they know to be true to the best of their investigation and knowledge.
In traditional journalism, reporters deliver the facts and let the audience decide what their opinion is of that information. However, some correspondents today offer opinion, according to WSMV anchor Demetria Kaladimos.
I think there definitely is bias out there, and again, it's up to the consumer to decide who they're reading, who they trust, and who they go to for accurate information.
With more sources for news and the reality of some only tuning into opinions that match theirs, will this actually create a less informed society? News Director Bruce Moore says it is up to every person to become informed.
It's hard to, from a family standpoint, make people learn about daily events and issues. All we can do is gather the news and report the news, and hopefully people will take it upon themselves to learn about it in whatever way they want to.
Research shows fewer read the newspaper or watch a TV newscast. Lipscomb journalism professor Jimmy McCollum says students these days tend to get news from comedy programs.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's tonight's top 10 list. Let's start this.
Jon Stewart, Saturday Night Live, and there may not be that sense of let's go to the mainstream media, let's go to the newspaper, let's look at 2 or 3 different magazines for this story, but they'll watch Comedy Central on their phone or on TV, and that will suffice for their news, and that's the challenge.
McCollum adds it is important for today's journalists and those studying journalism in college to learn to cover all sides to a story.
Keep on teaching those basics that we have tried for years, reporting and objectivity and fairness. The fact that newsrooms are getting smaller should not be an excuse for doing a sloppy job.
Some in society trust citizen journalists more than professional reporters. In order to combat this, award-winning journalist and retired editorial page editor for The Tennessean, Dwight Lewis, says media organizations have to reach out to their community and offer not only the news they want, but the news consumers need. Lewis says you cannot call yourself a good media organization if you just cover one area.
You have to cover it all. And if you don't cover it all, people are going to look elsewhere for those citizen journalists to give them what they need.
Trust in the media is enhanced by the consumer when they believe a reporter understands your lived experience, according to the Poynter Institute's Kelly McBride.
And if you never see them express your lived experience, you're probably not going to believe that they're trustworthy because they don't know anything about you. So how could they possibly be trustworthy around the issues that you want them to be trustworthy around? That's why diversity is really important and getting diverse voices into a variety of platforms.
The Tennessean's Dwight Lewis says reporters must not forget there is a real world out there.
I can't just go to work from home, stay in the office, and then go back home. That I still have to get out and see people and talk to people and listen to people. And I think when you do that, you can build trust.
With all of the negativity surrounding journalism, Nashville TV anchor Demetria Kaladimos remains positive.
I'm still excited about the profession. I think there's always going to be a need for a messenger, and there's always going to be curious and inquisitive people who want to know what's going on in the world. Journalism's alive. We just got to make sure that everyone values it as much as those of us who practice it.
The Poynter Institute's Kelly McBride hopes we never get to the place where the public loses all trust in the media.
So if nobody trusts anything, democracy doesn't work. We're in a precarious place. I wouldn't say it's a bad place. I think we have choices to make about how we as consumers consume information and how we as news producers produce information.
To regain public trust, many journalists may wish to remember the basic principles of journalism. To give a voice to the voiceless, to hold the powerful accountable, and to realize whether we get our news from traditional media, computer, tablet, or phone. This admonition from Edward R. Murrow still applies.
This instrument can teach, it can illuminate, yes, and even it can inspire. But it can do so only to the extent that humans are determined to use it to those ends. Otherwise, it's nothing but wires and lights in a box.
I'm Terry Likes. You're listening to Tennessee Matters on the Tennessee Radio Network.